Hello and welcome. I'm Marian Pyle. Thanks for joining us here at Winning at Love. This uplifting video series is designed to honor God and provide guidance and encouragement to Christian singles about dating, romance, and finding the right partner in life. Winning at Love brings you 8 deeply personal and inspiring testimonies told by Christian couples who took a risk, faced their fears, persevered through the setbacks, and won the heart of the one they loved. We trust you'll be blessed. Here now is Winning at Love.
Winning at Love, spirit-filled stories about dating and romance.
Marquee was born and raised in Washington State and moved to Los Angeles after graduating college. His roommate bought him a Bible and took him to church, and Marquee got radically saved. After praying for God to show him his life purpose, Marquee began memorizing entire books of the Bible. Before long, he launched a unique ministry called Acts of the Word and began performing the scriptures all over the country, as well as in parts of Europe. Despite his success, Marquee longed for a life companion and began praying to God for direction. Things got off to a bumpy start until one night, in the middle of a crowded room, Marquee suddenly received a supernatural answer to his prayer. The message was clear, specific, but came wrapped in a surprise that left Marquee absolutely speechless. Teresa grew up in New Jersey, the daughter of a pastor and the youngest of 3 children. She went to college in Indiana and graduated with a double major in political science and communications. After moving back to New Jersey, a girlfriend invited her to a night at the theater. That evening, an actor named Marquee Laughlin would be performing the Book of Revelations. Intrigued, Teresa agreed to go, not knowing that sitting in that one special seat in the middle of the theater was about to radically alter the course of her life. This is Marquee and Teresa.
Hi, I'm Marquee Laughlin, and this is my wife, Teresa. I came into a relationship with Jesus when I was 24 and committed my life to him. 12 years after that, and dating, it got kind of intense because in that age bracket, your dating kind of gets almost concentrated. It's fast forward. It's hard to get to know people. They want to know, before they know your name, they want to know whether you're husband material, whether you're serious and all that stuff. I had just broken up with somebody, and I felt pretty bad about it because I was trying to get to know who they were and where they were spiritually. And of course, your feelings develop, and when I realized that this wasn't the person, breaking that off was kind of frustrating, and I know it was kind of heartbreaking for everybody involved. So I was committed to not do that again. I felt like I kind of made a mess of that, and so I really was crying out to the Lord, saying, "Hey, just give me a sign, show me who my mate is. I don't need to date anybody until you bring my mate along. I'm fine with that." So I went to sleep that night after that prayer, and God gave me a dream. And I was on a stage. I was performing, which is what I do. And he came up behind me, put his arm around me, and he pointed over my shoulder out into the audience, and he said, "She's going to be in the audience." And boom, I woke up, and I just had this sense of peace that I just knew that that was true. I had no desire to date. I knew exactly what I needed to do, which was pursue the ministry God had given me to present the Bible live.
So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. But Mary remained seated in the house.
And that when I was doing that, I was going to find my wife. She was going to be in the audience. And so I remember telling a few of my friends about this, and they kind of raised their eyebrow and went, "Okay." I stopped dating completely, and it was kind of questionable. I mean, people were wondering about me. I had some unsaved friends wondering about whether I was, still a guy. And moved to New Jersey to pursue ministry and continue to perform the Bible. And right when I got there, the second performance I did was at a church that was in a high school. They were meeting at a high school, and it was this kind of stadium seating auditorium. And I got up to start, and I was probably 10 or 15 minutes into it, and I looked up, and in the center of the audience, right in front of me, there was this girl who was asleep, and I thought, I just started. I can't be that bad, I kind of couldn't take my eyes off her because she was right in the center of the audience, and I couldn't believe that she was sleeping through the entire.
I was resting my eyes and
90 minutes of my speech. So that was my first laying eyes on her. So after the show, I'm meeting and greeting people, and a girl walks up. She was interested in me because I was trying to get her apartment when she moved out, and I just moved to the area and I needed a place to stay. And so every week I would call her and say, "Have you moved yet?" And so she thought, "Oh, this single guy, he's in town, and I'm going to be the first one to kind of claim him." And I didn't feel the same way about her, but she had brought Teresa and another one of her friends to show them what I do and to meet me. So they had all come, and so when they introduced Teresa to me, I immediately noticed, oh, she's the girl who was sleeping. So I just kind of thought, well, she's not that impressed with me. So I just kind of wrote her off. About 5 minutes later, the pastor of the church said, "Hey, let's all go to dinner. Let's go with Marquee. We're gonna all go eat." So about 20 people went to this Greek restaurant. They finally started to seat us, and they lined up all these tables in a long line, and everybody was shuffling around trying to find a seat. And the pastor finally says, "Okay, everybody stop. Sit down right where you are." And so we sat down, and we sat down right next to each other. She was right to my left like she is now. We kind of looked at each other and smiled, and I thought, ironic that I'm being seated next to the only person who slept. Anyway. And we looked right across the table where was the girl that was interested in me and her best friend, and they had brought Teresa, and so they gave us kind of a look like, let's watch these two. And I thought, uh-oh, this is not a good vibe. There's a little bit of like a little jealousy thing going on, and I was thinking, this is not good. We started to eat. I noticed that one of the first things I noticed about her was that she wasn't eating like most women eat when they're in front of a man. They kind of pick and salad, and she was eating like if she was going to eat whatever you had left over if you did. And I was like, wow, it turns out, of course, she had 2 older brothers, so she knows how to do that. So I was impressed with that. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then as I sat there, in the middle of a bite, I heard this voice say, "Could you be sitting next to your wife?" And it was it was inside my head, but it was if somebody said it to me. And I was so sure that I heard it that I said, "What?" Like, who would say that? And everybody looked at me like, "Yeah?" And I was like, "Oh." And I realized God had spoke to me, and I just kind of played it off, and I kind of looked at her again, and this time I really took a good look at her. I was like, because I thought, where did that come from? I went home that night thinking, what was that? Because an audible voice in my head that wasn't mine, and just looking at it, where did that come from? And so that's my first recollection of how we met.
Really amazing what God was doing in both of our lives. We parallel, he was working in my life and working in Marquee's life at the same time. In college, I had been in a semi-serious relationship, and just felt like God was telling me, this is not right. It's time to break it off. And it was very difficult. The enemy was trying to speak all kinds of things to me, like, if you break this off, it's going to be it. You're not going to find anyone, who's going to, be better, and all these things. So, but it was really a faith walk for me to trust God and go ahead and make that step. A lot of people around me didn't understand. They said, well, why are you doing that? They wanted a substantial reason as to why I was doing it, and all I could offer was just that I felt like that was what God was saying to me. So I broke it off, and then once I graduated from college, decided I didn't want to Originally I was going to go to grad school, but then I decided I was going to just take some time and travel and try to find myself. That led me to New Jersey. God was leading me to go on what I called a dating fast. And so for 6 months, I wasn't going to date anyone. And so, and this led right up to our meeting. I started in April, and we met in October. That was when my dating fast officially ended. The day that we met, I was going to church, and I was about to enter, and a friend of mine was coming out of church. She mentioned she was going to see this guy who had the book of Revelation memorized, and he was going to perform it dramatically. And I said, wow, that sounds great. So she invited me to come along. But while at the performance, my first impression of him was wow, this is, I thought he was very handsome and very well put together and polished, and one of the biggest things was that, wow, he has a whole book of the Bible memorized.
Tell him why you fell asleep.
Anyway.
So she had flown all night long, got
I was
up,
tired.
worked at the church, a couple of early services, and then come to see me, so she was just really tired.
The other man, I thought, wow, he will make someone a great husband. But I didn't think of him for myself. When I went to go meet him afterwards, after the performance was over, and I shook his hand, and it was just a very comfortable feeling. I just felt like, honestly, I felt like I was interacting with one of my brothers when I first started interacting with him. And so it just was very easy for me to let my guard down and just initially kind of hang out and spend time with him. At the same time, he was having this thought of, could I be sitting next to my wife? I was sitting next to him thinking, wow, this is extremely comfortable, and I could do this for the rest of my life.
After the dinner, we get driven back to our cars by the girl that was kind of interested in me, and so as I'm sitting there thinking, well, they're friends, this is, I'm curious about Teresa because I did meet her at my show, but there's probably nothing I can do. So I go back to the office the next day, and the secretary there knows all three of them, and they go to the same church. And so she asked me, well, how did your show go? And I said, well, it went great, and here's who showed up. And lastly, I mentioned, and I met Teresa, and she said, oh yeah, and she was nice. So I a little email to her, kind of, So I knew she would carry that along. So I figured, well, at least I'll drop a little hint that'll maybe get to her, and we'll see what happens. A couple of weeks go by, and I get a phone call from the girl who was interested in me, from her friend, the third girl that was there, and she asked me, Marquee, why aren't you interested in my friend? And I said, well, I've just been calling her I want her apartment. She's nice, we're friends, but I'm not interested in her. And I thought that's very odd. And then the next day, she calls me and asks me, why aren't you interested in me? And I'm like, that is really awkward. So I get off the phone and I'm thinking, what is going on? And I'm trying to think, did I do something to mislead somebody? I know I haven't. And then I thought about Teresa. I thought, man, she probably thinks, I'm engaged to this girl or something. You know what I mean? So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna get a hold of her and at least try to find out what's going on. I mean, she's the third friend. Maybe she knows what's going on. So I asked our secretary, who knows them both, I said, hey, can you give me the phone number to the church? So I called up the church, and I got a hold of Teresa, and I said, look, I think we need to talk. There's some misunderstanding between your friends, and they kind of think something's going on between me and one of them. It's not, And so she said, well, here's my phone number. Give me a call at home. And I said, well, I'm going to be out of town for a few days. I'll call you next week. So sure enough, I get home from being out of town, and I call her and I leave her a message, and I don't hear from her. It's like a Tuesday, I don't hear from her, and a week goes by and I don't hear from her, a week and a half, and I'm thinking, wow, I thought, just wanted to find out about it. Maybe they got to her, maybe they told her don't call him, or something, So it was weird. And so I'm in my quiet time about a week and a half later, and I'm like, okay, Lord, you put somebody in front of me. I'm curious, I'm interested about this person. If they're not the person, just get them off the fence. Don't leave them in limbo, so I'm thinking about them. Just get them off the fence, in or out. you know, and so I walked to work. It was about 10 minutes away, and literally as soon as I sit down, the phone rings, and it's Teresa. And I'm like, really? It was like, that's fast. Okay. so, and she's like, hey, you didn't call me, so I thought I'd call you. I was like, well, no, I called you and I left you a message, but she didn't get my message. I left her a message, but she had moved. How?
I got his message. I just got his message late. I got his message about a week late. And then I was in the process of moving, and so that's why I didn't get back in touch with him for almost a week and a half, 2 weeks.
So I was all happy, okay. So we started talking. We just kind of hit it off over the phone, and I kind of told her what was going on. I didn't ask her out because I still felt like, I wasn't really sure. And then I said, well, where did you move? And she says, well, I moved in with the other two girls. And I'm like, great. She says, well, as a matter of fact, my new phone number is the phone number of one of the other girls.
The mutual friend.
Yeah, because I haven't got my phone hooked up. So if you want to get a hold of me, you either have to call me at the church number where the other mutual friend is working and picks up the phone, or on that girl's voicemail. So I was literally, I had no way to communicate with her privately. So, I'm thinking, okay, how do I ask her out and not hurt people's feelings and make this, And so I just started praying about it. About a week went by, and I got that idea where, God gave you the idea. You've been praying how to do it. And it was like the Grinch who stole Christmas. I got this grin on my face because I got it. So I said, okay, it was the first week of December, and I called up the church, and of course I got a hold of the best friend who would tell her friend everything. And I said, look, I have to get some Christmas gifts for you and your best friend because you helped me you helped me get my apartment. I don't know what to get, so can I talk to Teresa, who's there? So, of course, she had to let me talk to her then, right? I'm buying her Christmas gifts. I asked Teresa if she wanted to go Christmas shopping for the other two girls. And so it was a perfect first date because they would let her out of the house to see me because we were getting them gifts. So I was like, thank you. Good answer to prayer. So that was how we got on our first date. We went out, I think I picked you up around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we shopped, we ate, we went to a movie, we ate again. We came back, talked in my car for a couple hours. And I think finally I think we got back about 12 o'clock.
It was pretty late when we got back.
Just kept talking.
Yeah.
Because we just hit it off and we had so much in common. I knew then, but I didn't say anything. I knew after the first date that this was who God had for me, but I didn't say anything. But we were so excited we couldn't stop talking. I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning we finally went into the door. You can pick it up from there.
And so that didn't go over too well with my new roommates, of course, and they were waiting out for me, as a matter of fact. We didn't want to, like he said, step on anyone's toes, but yet at the same time we felt like there was, we wanted to explore what we felt like God was bringing us together, and we didn't want to let anyone come in between that. We went on another date, and we tried to get home. I tried to get home a little earlier on that one, and I think I wound up getting in about 10 or something, and then we sat in the car and talked for another couple hours, and so it was like midnight by the time we went to go in. And
right, we were trying to be quiet, and we don't want to wake them.
Right.
And so I said, well, let me walk you to the door. We're closing the car doors really quiet and get out there. And so I'm standing there, and I've got a big down jacket on. It's the middle of December, and I just kind of sigh and look at her, and I leaned against the doorpost, and I accidentally leaned on the doorbell, and it was just ding, 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 ding. So, real smooth, so not good. I told her on that date, I said, look, I know that you're the person for me, and I know you don't know, and that's okay. And it may take you a while. If it takes you a year or 6 months, a month, 5 years, I'm fine. I love you. I'm gonna love you. There's nothing I can do about it. Whatever I find out about you that I don't like, I'm gonna have to live with that because I'm in. And that's how I felt, and I just knew that I knew. And so she kind of went, okay. I could tell she was a little freaked out by that, but I was like, hey, I gotta lay it out there. That's what it is. And I told her, hey, it's okay. You can freak out for a while and figure it out. Take your time. But this is where I am. And just 2 dates in.
And I think I tested that a little bit, like, okay, back and forth.
Well, she about a month or two into our dating, she knew I was pretty intense that way, and I think she got scared and said, well, I want to see if
I think we need to break it off.
She called me up. I think we need to break it up. We need some space for a while. And I'd seen this happen so many times in relationships where
with friends
that I knew exactly what was happening, and I just had a total peace about it. And I'd already told her, hey, if you I love you, that's just the way it is, and whether you run away, when you come back, I'm still gonna love you. This is just the way it is. And so I said, okay, here's a chance for me to show her that I love her and that I'm fine with that. So I just told her, okay, that's fine. If I was very disappointed, but I thought, okay, if that's the way you want it to be, okay, I'll leave you alone for a bit. And so a week goes by and I don't call her, and of course she calls me up. Why haven't you called me? So I was like, really? That was her way of testing my love to see if it was.
And I think that's one of the great things that God was building in him even before we met, was just patience and a tenacity. And those are two things of the two great qualities in him that I think that were very necessary for us to be together. And
I think for me too, it was the fact that because I'd been single for a long time, I really felt like I really, really, really understood what characteristics, what traits were really of value. And so when I met you and I saw those, I knew they were rare. I recognized them and said, wow, that is amazing, and that is extremely rare, because I felt like I'd turned over a lot of stones, and I was okay. I know what's common and I know what's extremely valuable, and so I knew that's who I'd found. We courted for about a year, and on New Year's Eve, I had a radio interview for a show I was doing. And I sat down with the producer. I said, hey, I want to, my ring, I want to ask Teresa to marry me. I want to do it on live radio. I want to do it live. I'm going to tell all of her friends to listen, and I want to tell the whole world, I love her in front of everybody. And he's like, you sure about this? It's live radio. It was like about 9 o'clock in New Jersey, and I go to the station and we're doing the interview, and I told her, somebody's going to call you because the host of the show is going to ask you about my show. Is it any good? Should you go see it? And that was kind of the ruse. So all of her friends were listening. She didn't know, and so she gets a call and we're on live. Oh, okay, we had one more caller from Marquee. Oh, it's Teresa. Oh yeah, guys, so. Don't you have one more question for Teresa, don't you, Marquee? And I was like, and then as soon as he started to say that, I realized what I'd done. I realized, oh my goodness, what if she says no? Everybody is listening in the whole, New York, New Jersey area. They're all, it's not going to be pretty. I got so nervous, and I said, okay, I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I have this ring right here. You can't see it, but it's beautiful. And will you marry me? And there was this pause.
And I'm on the other line going,
and we can't see that. And so the program host looks at me like, we're like, what are we gonna do? We weren't planning for this. And I was like, it was just the longest, moment in your life. Because I was thinking, I have nothing to say. I got nothing. I can't, who's going to speak next if she doesn't say anything? So finally she says, yes. And, kind of stumbles it out. I'm like, oh, relief, About 6 months after that, we got married.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Winning at Love. For more episodes, information, and resources, please visit us at winningatlove.tv. That's winningatlove.tv, not .com. And if you found it helpful, be sure and tell a friend. Thanks for watching, and see you again next time.